around really, really soon. So to date, we've delivered changes to over 1,000 student sport officers across probably 30 to 40 institutions in the UK. So we've done a lot of work proving that and working with officers. So does it make a difference? So give you some ideas about the discussions post film. We've had over 18% of all the comments from those 1,000 feedback forms talking about social culture and the environment, the impact they didn't realise about the social culture and the environment. We see through the films and the discussion the notion of empathy for the individual, thinking about, actually, I didn't realise how someone would feel in that situation. And even those that said, I really enjoyed it, so they'll enjoy it, actually said, it made me think that I couldn't put my views on anyone else. People also talked about the negative emotions, the realisation that people could do that and the impact. And critically, the people were always talking about the impact on health. So actually, we didn't realise the risk. We didn't realise. And I think, again, that comes back to that point I made right at the beginning about if we want to evoke change and we want to reduce risk, we've got to educate. And that's one of the things that the Changes programme does. Critically, we get a high percentage talking about change towards events. Most importantly, it's when we ask about, okay, so how are you going to change in the future? What are we going to think about? What are you going to do in the future? And this is where our results really start to show that Changes is having a positive impact. So when we looked at all the points about what people were going to, what student athletes were going to do in the future, 32% of all comments related to change in the social and cultural environment. The fact that they talked about running non-alcohol events, they talked about actually making sure that we were inclusive, making sure that everybody, regardless of personal factors, felt part of the team. Critically, 40% of the comments related to how they were going to be more aware of the feelings of new members, how they were going to work with new members, how they were going to try and reduce the power differential. And that's another interesting thing, that quite often sports officers or society officers don't realise the power they have just based on a title that they have. They don't feel that is power, but actually it's giving them the knowledge and the understanding that actually, when you think about it, as a third year student, you're older, you know the university, you've got a title within your society. To someone new, that all adds up to a form of power. And then critically, we saw them talking about change towards events. So what we've got from the data, and I think when I come and talk to groups such as yourselves, when we talk about actual data and does it work, we can actually say, well, yes, this does work. So it'd be interesting to share with you some of the qualitative data that comes back on the feedback sheets from our sessions. So thoughts, we divide this into two areas, sort of outcome and thoughts. So people talked about, I realised the peer pressure felt. How people do things to part of the club. I think when we look at the negative thoughts, we need to talk about the sub-themes. We've got risk, danger, psychological effects. Recognising the risk, understanding how embarrassed freshers may feel. And critically on the outcomes, talking about the social, being welcoming, inclusive, making sure social events are inclusive, being careful when planning, and create an environment where there's no humiliation, bullying, or pressure. So changes so that freshers are seen as equals. Make sure the power divide is not there. So the notions backed up by the commentary. So overall, what we know from the workshop is we've got positive change in the 3 key areas to new members, social environment and culture, and the change in the events. We also gain feedback not from the student sport officers, but also from salaried staff. And I think these again feed into show the value of the changes workshop. So I'm convinced the culture amongst our teams has already changed. Another person talked about the workshop being really valuable. Pleased, and I think this is really important, they were pleased that these issues were being directly addressed through the workshop. So actually the student officers talking about, actually it was good to have space to talk. And then we had reports, and this is another exemplar from a different university where they talk about seeing a significant decrease in disciplinary issues and reports of poor or inappropriate behaviour. So we've got, in a way, 360 feedback about the programme. So, and we do enjoy delivering it, particularly working with student sport officers, society members, to ensure that we create the right culture and environment. From our work, we've now got partnerships with Scottish Student Sport and Books, and changes has been cited in Universities UK Stop Initiations, where there's a recommendation that universities collaborate with us on the changes intervention in order to reduce initiation activity. So that in an overview of the changes programme. Critically though, what we realise is, between myself and my colleague, there's only 2 of us, there's a lot of institutions, and we've developed now a train the trainer programme. So we're now training other people within student sport to actually deliver the programme on our behalf and to other universities. So our reach is wider. So we have a train the trainer programme, and through Books and Scottish Student Sport, we've now trained probably 40 to 50 people who are available to deliver the changes programme. Critically, we made a decision right back at the beginning that nobody could deliver at their home institution, and there's many reasons for that, including providing a safe, non-judgmental space. You know, one of the benefits when we deliver it is we go to an institution, deliver the programme, we leave, and we can have frank and honest discussion, and we can ensure confidentiality, which is very difficult if you're a salaried member of staff of that university. So we have got a train the trainer programme, and obviously if anyone wants to get involved with that, I'm more than happy to discuss that. We've also got an online changes programme, which is just being updated as we speak. COVID sort of halted and has increased our focus on the online programme, and we hope to roll that out in September. And again, critically, that online version is also an educational version. So it is about empowerment and educational change. It's not about a pass-fail approach to it. And that's an interesting thing. When we were developing the online version, what we didn't want to do was make it punitive or make it something that a student just did and they got a pass mark and it was just a stepping stone they had to do. So came up with a different way of measuring engagement in the programme. So we did some pilot work about how long it took people to work through the online programme. I'll show you why we did that in a minute. To get involved with the online changes program, there's an online booking system. We book you in, we give you username and password, and we open it for a set amount of time. So say, for example, you had a rugby team that you wanted to engage in the program. We'd come up with a couple of days and we'd open it for those 3 days for you, and all your participants would have to complete it in those 3 days. Critically, like I said, we didn't want this to be a punitive approach. We didn't want to say, right, work through it, someone gets 95%, that's it, job done. What we actually did was we worked out what the mean time to complete it was if you were engaging. And then we looked around how long, plus or minus, what sort of standard deviation around the mean there was. And we use that to look at who engages in the program. Now, for anyone looking in, it's not 60 minutes. That's just me making that up to give you an idea. But what we do is we look at the participants. If they fall within our range, we say there's a good chance they've engaged with the program. For those who take longer and much longer, we flag them back to the university and say, actually, it's up to you to have a conversation with this person about whether they did actually engage, because they're way outside of the timeframes. Now, sometimes people can be over the time frame for a very, very genuine reason, and that's why we always take it back to the university and say, these are people you need to talk to, because we don't know if they've got any form of special requirement, or whether their internet went down, or whether English isn't their first language, for example, which would make it all a lot longer to engage with. Critically, what we do know, if someone whizzes through it in 10 minutes, they haven't engaged. And again, it's a method of allowing universities to take control and not being punitive. So, what have we learned from all the work that we've done in terms of initiations? And I think, going back to the fact, critically for me, the problems with initiations are about the humiliation, the health risk, and the psychological risk. So critically, we've learned about numbers in workshop groups. We generally, when we're running the workshop, have a maximum of 30 student support officers in any one workshop, and we're quite happy to run 4 or 5 workshops through the day. It does require commitment from universities, student union or athletic union. We've also found that timing and organisation of the workshops, it's much, much better if we can start the workshops when student support officers are elected. As I've said, the trainer, and the online's not pass-fail, it's not punitive. Critically, we know changes takes time, and change takes time, so there's always going to be a challenge. And critically, when we think about when we set off doing this, we thought actually a 3-year cycle of developing and using the program would see significant change. Where are we at now? What are the next developments that you can look out for, that you can get involved in? We're starting to develop an interactive app, and it's called, for want of anything at the moment, Our Activity. And what students can do is they can use the app, and it asks them questions about any planned activity, including health risk behaviours, whether there's alcohol involved, whether there's dressing up involved, all sorts of things that can create either a psychological, physical health problem. And it's again saying, hold on, have you thought about what is your alternative? So they can start to look at activities and identify risk for themselves. So hopefully, we're hopeful will give them a risk score. We're going to continue to work with our partners, look at how we develop more online resources for student support officers, And we're now looking at doing some work around safe space reporting, because critically, we need to uncover reasons why students and new players don't report negative events, and what we can do to facilitate that reporting. So how we can actually help and work with student support officers, society officers, and importantly, new students, if they feel, actually, I'm not happy, they've got a safe space to report that. So what are our challenges in reducing risk behaviour? So one thing we didn't bank on, as nobody did, was the impact of COVID. That's put a break in the chain of changes, in so much as, like I said, we were thinking this would be a 3-year cycle and then we'd see real significant change, because that would have been, if you think about it, 3rd years and then 2nd years coming through, and then that would have been the 1st years coming through into those positions of responsibility with a different culture, a year-on-year change. So I think we are going to see some interesting issues there. I'm really concerned that students have spent a year away from their institutions in many respects, and that's a year to think about what they've missed, what they're going to do. I think incoming students may be lower risk aware in the fact that, again, the impact of COVID, that they've been not exposed to social events. I'm also concerned that, and we do have reports of leavers coming back to make up for lost time. So what is the impact of this time's level 6 students if they're going to return for the start of the new year and not necessarily be on campus, but be in events and off-campus pubs, clubs? What is their impact going to be on and for those new teams setting up? There's lots of challenges I think we face, mainly due to COVID. Critically, I guess that brings us to the point about saying, well, what can we do together? So I think some take-home messages would be, more than happy to work with anyone, and please do work with us. Finding ways to have difficult conversations and create safe spaces. I think that's really important for any university, SU, AU to do, is to have that safe space for difficult conversations. One university that we've worked with has started to look at making student sport societies register their activities and encourage non-drinking socials with rewards for different types of activities. I think also we need to think about simple keep safe initiatives. So one of the things that we talk about when we're talking to students and the student sport officers is the notion of, actually, what do you do on a night out? Say you've got a really positive activity, it's going really well. How do you keep everyone safe on a night out? So we talk about the use of the mobile phone in a positive way. We talk about, one of the things that we promote is having a WhatsApp group for your new team. And when you're leaving a club, you message everyone, leaving in 10, meet at the front, are you in or out? People can opt in or out. And it means, especially when they've got new members of the team that might not know the area, they're always looking out for each other. Think about your reporting methods. Is it working? Does it work? Why doesn't it work? Now, hopefully, I'll be able to talk to you in a while about what we found out, but actually I think it's really important that we think about the reporting methods. Think about codes of conduct, but make them owned by the students. So I know lots of universities have codes of conduct. Who wrote them? If you empower your societies to write their own codes of conduct through positive messages, that's more likely to harvest engagement. And I think critically, what's really sort of interesting at the moment is how many times teams, societies are developing inclusion videos where they're actually not just got a code of conduct written on a piece of paper, but they're also actually positively promoting through different mediums. So there's lots of different things that we can do to move and create safe environments to reduce that risk that we find, and we have found, that happens with initiations about the use of alcohol, and to stop that health risk behaviour. We do have a large evidence base. I'm happy to share any of that with anyone that's interested. I'm more than happy to take questions. I think my final point, as we open the floor to questions, would be what we do need to do is all work together to reduce risk, to improve experience, and to stop the very unfortunate and tragic events that we all know have happened due to excessive alcohol consumption on initiation nights. So that's where I'll stop now, and I'm happy to take any questions. I'll stop sharing my screen. And
so attendees are encouraged to submit questions via the Q&A box. We've not had any yet, Moira, but I just had a thought. Well, I really enjoyed your presentation. It was really helpful. I know that you gave some really great examples of things like WhatsApp groups that are like really great kind of ways that you can make actual kind of events more inclusive. But I know you mentioned on that slide as well having non-drinking socials. I just wondered whether what kind of socials you come across that were quite kind of popular or kind of innovative, and whether you had any kind of advice around that.
Okay, so the two examples that spring to mind is one university that we went to actually had a film night, and they literally set it up as it was a film on a beach, and they had it wasn't a physical beach, if you know what I mean, but they created like a beach theme, and they had deck chairs, popcorn, and those type of events, you know, just very simple, but it was different. And I know of one other university that, so they engage all the students, and they had students that played for one sport who, due to religious beliefs, didn't engage with alcohol at all. So they made all their after match socials non-alcohol for the first 2.5 hours, so everyone could engage. So I know that's not no alcohol, but that's sort of making it available for everyone, and nobody's left out. Everyone is included. There's lots of different initiatives, different trips. Pizza parties, another great one, and I know several places that run pizza parties and actually don't have any alcohol there at all. I think one of the critical things when I look at initiations, it's not just the volume of alcohol that really is concerning, it's also the mix of alcohol and then the activities, because if we think about alcohol reducing our senses, reducing all our awareness, and then the engagement in risk behaviour activity as well. I don't know if I've answered your question or whether I've just waffled round there.
No, totally. I love it. I love those examples. They really bring things to life. I know when I was at university many years ago now, the only alcohol-free or kind of like non-alcohol focused events were kind of playing tiddlywinks in the corner of campus, like something that no one would want to do. Whereas I love hearing about all of the innovative ways that issues and clubs and societies and universities are thinking of to make it kind of, you know, to make it truly inclusive and something that the rest of the team are going to go to as well. Because there's no point having an alcohol-free social that only the non-drinkers go to, is there?
Absolutely not. It's got to be inclusive, and it's, you know, also about reducing the fear and the need and the fear of I must do. And
Yeah.
you know, we know that, you know, young people talk about FOMO all the time, and actually we don't want anyone to miss out. We want everyone to be or have the opportunity to take part. But a lot of what we do ask people about respect as well, and I think that is a critical aspect. It's building respect for each individual.
Definitely. That's excellent. We've had a question submitted through the Q&A. So someone's just asked, do you ever find that students react negatively to the programme or feel like their SU or university is trying to ruin the fun or interfere too much? I know that's something that sometimes people do worry about, so that's a really excellent question to bring up.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what we're saying and what we do through our programme is, you know, we're trying to say, okay, how do you make the event welcoming, not necessarily an initiation? And what I generally find, and what we found across several universities, and obviously can't say which ones, is that when we get resistance from student officers in the workshop, we usually find that's because either they have A, planned something, or B, have already done something. You know, we get quite often we don't have a problem. And if you've got someone that's quite good on different social media platforms, you can usually find their problem. We had one organisation, one university, when we first presented the idea of the changes, was very much like that. Poo-poo, we haven't got a problem. We don't need anything like that. I think the video we showed them suggested otherwise, but we were very lucky we could put our hands on that video right away. But we do get negativity. You know, some people say we don't have a problem, but I think that's a naivety, because we do have problems. We've just got to face them and actually challenge the problem.
Definitely. I think what you see sometimes in clubs and societies is that they think that they don't have a problem because they've made it so uninclusive that those people don't even bother coming along anymore.
Absolutely. And also what happens is it goes underground. So we've got reports of initiation activities on the top of car park roofs, on the top floor of a car park. Well, if you talk about risk, think then you've got alcohol, you've got stupid games, umpteen foot in the air.
Yeah.
You know, so I think when they say we haven't got a problem, it might be because it's been pushed off campus, they don't know about it, or if we say we've not got a problem, we don't have to face the problem, which sounds a bit harsh, but I think we've just got to be, okay, what can we do to educate, and through education empower our young people to actually take a positive stance.
How supportive of kind of organisations like Books been of this work?
Books have been really, really supportive. Like I say, we've got a partnership with Books, so they promote changes. Scottish Student Sport as well, not just promote but actually work with us. So we're really well embedded now, I would say, into the student sport structure. And it's, you know, without the partnership work that we have, it would be much more difficult, you know. And, you know, 1,000 student sport officers over 2 years through the programme is really testimony to their engagement.
Totally. I think so. We've got one more question through the question and answer box. So do you find that there's much difference between the behaviour of sports and clubs versus societies in the way that they do their initiations?
I think there's a whole spectrum. So I think across sports we've had some horrific tales, and I think societies as well, very much depends on the society as well. You know, and I think sometimes they're different, but can be equally as emotionally harming at times. But I think, you know, it really, really depends on the society.
Amazing. Yeah, totally. I suppose that in a way as well, people, there's more of an eye and more people are watching out more for sports clubs, you know, your rugby clubs and everything, whereas maybe so maybe they've made more progress because they know they can get away with less.
Yeah, and I think you just hit on something that I didn't really mention, but one of the other things that we do within our work is also discuss bystander and the impact of being a bystander and how not to be a bystander, what to do, you know, because quite often someone can see someone in trouble, but they don't want to intervene because actually, but then how do they intervene? How do they keep someone safe?
Yeah, I bet that's so helpful. I know that a lot of the people I work with would find that so useful. So yeah, please do keep up this excellent work, and we're looking forward to seeing how the programme develops. Oh, I was just about to draw it to a close, but we've got one more question, which is actually perfect. The perfect question to end on. Where would the links be to see the training programme and the online e-learning platform? So do you have a link to where people can find out more about the programme, Moira?
What I can do is, we've got a leaflet, but what we don't do is open the online platform till someone actually signs up to it, if you see what I mean, because
of course
it's not a free access, it's password protected. But I have got a leaflet that I can send to you that you can just make available to any participants.
Wicked, yeah, I'll include that in the follow-up after the conference for everybody, so that would be amazing. Thank you so much, Moira.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure.
Great. Well, that draws us to the end of today's content. So thank you everyone so much for joining us. We hope that you've enjoyed the content today, and we look forward to welcoming you back tomorrow. So just as a reminder, we'll be starting again at 1 p.m. tomorrow. I'll send round the video from today, as well as the agenda for tomorrow in an email to everyone tomorrow. So you should have that to hand. But don't forget as well, it's just the same link and password for the whole event. So have a good evening, everyone, and see you back tomorrow.